All right, guys, Shotty T here with another Alliance War video. This is war number 9 of the season, facing Protect. We're 4-4 on the season, so we bounced back pretty well after starting off 0-3. As you probably heard in my Crystal Open video, we did finish Platinum 4, but for the sake of finishing out these war video series, I'm still going to provide our remaining 4 wars of the season. So that way, just to provide some guidance. And there's going to be some couple of interesting fights here. Really, one in particular. So you'll see the dynamics in that particular fight, because it's something that I learned that I didn't really know about previously. So, but anyway, as you guys see, I'm running my Path 5 as usual. We got that Mr. Immortal Abomination once again. And some of the same defenders. We got a Dragon Man mini. And just looking at the scope of the rest of the defense there. Now we got a MODOK boss, so I won't be taking on the boss this time. And I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert. We actually struggled against that boss. MODOK boss, may consider placing him there. But with the right counter, he can be one shot. Like True Strike, Magneto, even Falcon. So he does have his counters. It's just that I think we had a Magneto, but it wasn't, fortunately we did not get the one shot. But anyway, we carry on. So my team, this war, because there's no Apocalypse boss, really don't need to bring magic. So we're going to bring Torch this time. Like I said, we haven't been bringing Torch as much, but he will be needed for one particular fight to make it pretty easy. I could have used him for some other fights, and one of those fights I probably would have used him for in hindsight, or someone else. But here we go. First fight here, we got a Darkhawk. Now, I technically can. Just want to make sure I was recording. So first fight, I can use Claire. I can use Human Torch, but the best, safest matchup to not worry about anything is Quake. Because after all, rule number 8, use your best matchup. So sometimes I'll get bored, or sometimes there'll be situations where you got 3 champs where it really doesn't matter who you bring, because either one can get the job done. In this case, that is the case with all 3 champs here. Out of the 3, the one that would probably have the toughest time would be Claire, but I can always heal with her. So like I said, either one of these champs would have been fine. But Quake, we knock him down with the Ebb and Flow knockdown, get rid of that protection permanently for the rest of the fight. And now my Quake damage is dealing normal damage. So really it takes about 3 or 4 aftershock charges, cycles to kill him. So that's the 3rd one. So this last one should kill him or come real close to killing him. All right. Yeah, so we got like 2%. We'll go ahead and drop the heavy to kill him there. Now the second medium, of course, with him is that spinorama thingy. So it's pretty easy to recognize there. And of course, the 4th light attack. So again, basic stuff. So this fight here, we're going to use Claire. Quake, you can't Quake this fight, but it is a little tricky with this double medium. So double medium champs are kind of more tricky to Quake. And there are more and more champs in the game that's coming that have double medium attacks. Of course, you got the Tigra, you got Domino, even though I find her a little bit easier to dex. So with Stealthy, he has a mechanism just like Domino and some others where you can dash back light counter. So there we go. I only parried him. Of course, you can parry him when he's coming at you. I only do it on this particular node, so that way I can maximize the damage when I do the dash back counter. So that's the only reason why. So I was a little late with that light counter. So it does require a little bit of timing when you do those light counters. Not always 100%. Yeah, we tried to see if we could heal a little bit before he died, but unfortunately I hit too hard because he is a little bit squishy. So next fight we got a Captain Marvel movie. Pretty much any mystic pretty much destroys her, so it's gonna be no exception here with Claire. So it's gonna basically every attack is gonna deal residual um, energy damage. So she's basically taking bonus damage. So only thing we just gotta be careful of is the power transfer. Plus she has recoil, so just makes it pretty easy fight. So she's done. Okay, so next, we learned our lesson with that long shot right there. Somebody else took him down. So now we got a Korg. I believe this Korg is also low sig. I don't know if I checked in this fight or not, but we're gonna go ahead and apply our boost here. Use an attack boost, and I think we're gonna use a champion and a health boost if I'm not mistaken here. Oh, actually we used the big boy boost. I do restock up on some of those, and of course the Cavalier difficulty. Whoa, I'm gonna use, because at the time of this recording I didn't have a lot of units, but I did get some units. So I believe we applied the invulnerability booster because I think we're gonna Quake this fight. Yeah, I don't think we could afford to bring a. I think we could afford to bring a White Max, but the person that could have brought him wasn't able to join right just yet. So instead of once again creating a bottleneck, just want to take it with the best possible matchup given the scenario. Normally Claire would be a great matchup if I can freely parry him without him shrugging off everything. So since I couldn't use her, I'm gonna use Quake. Torch is a good core counter because his attack also does not deal any thorn damage. But if you're able to Quake and Shake, you can pretty much fight a lot of opponents, and Korg is one of them. But the only thing you have to be mindful of course, is his unblockable, unstoppable, which will trigger every once in a while, not every time. So it depends on when you're dexing back if he has that concussion active or not. Most of the time he doesn't, or he does, or just having it just expire where it still doesn't trigger. So really just a matter of not taking a hit into the block just in case he's unblockable or unstoppable. But I've quaked enough Korgs to be pretty comfortable in this matchup, although it is a cumbersome fight as far as like lengthwise. So depending on what node this Korg is on, it's not always a good idea to Quake him, especially if he's on a mini boss or a boss. If he's on the mini boss node, he's gonna have more health pools. So that means you're gonna be quaking for that much longer. And sometimes if you have a long Quake fight, you can have finger fatigue, especially if you're quaking a lot of long fights in a row. If it's just one standout fight, that's a long Quake fight, you can exercise it. You can endure that one fight. So anyway, next fight here, we do have a Mephisto. So we're gonna use Quake here. We're not even gonna worry about him gaining power and going unstoppable, unblockable, and evading. No footloose to worry about here. Of course, the only thing that's different about this node is that because force of will is applied, when he gets down to his like 30% threshold, he will regenerate. But because of I believe because of the Despair Mastery, his regeneration rate won't be as high. So as you can see, he's going down pretty well. So like I said, that stun debuff mitigated a good amount of the healing that he would have had. So I do have Despair pretty high. So this fight was pretty basic. So now we're gonna get to an interesting dynamic of a fight. So like I said, I do place. We do place Guardian on defense in the ebb and flow intercept path, and he gets kills almost on a regular basis. I just never knew why, because I thought maybe this should be a easy Quake fight. Somebody brings Quake, but there's gonna be some dynamics. First thing, I wanted to make sure that he didn't have like any ability accuracy reduction where she couldn't Quake him, because I don't think I ever Quaked a Guardian before. So, and it would have been a good idea to use a duel before I went into this fight, but you're gonna see something here. Apparently, this is a part of his ability, because I think I when I faced Domino with him in Alliance Quests, I do see where whenever she evades, or I think what it is, if his ability accuracy is being reduced, he applies a shock to the opponent. So whenever I have that concussion active on him for an extended period of time, I get a shock debuff on me, and it just stays there until, of course, I'm not holding the heavy. So when I charge the heavy, when he's being stunned like that, I'm always going to get that. So it's kind of scary here because it's ebb and flow intercept. So he has that protection active. So I'm outpacing his life at this point. But if I make one mistake quaking, now, I mean, I can theoretically still fight him without having to quake it. I would just have to fight as a normal fighter, because the only time I'm really getting that shock debuff is when he has that concussion active. So if I didn't want it, I would just fight it normal and just do intercepts and just have to deal with his SP1 and all that. But I can see why people that try to quake this and are not crisp with their quaking, or if they go into this fight without having Quake at full health, you can pretty much die from this node just from the shock damage alone. Because as you can see, I have not taken a single hit all fight, but half my health is gone. So again, I did not know about this dynamic going into this fight, at least from fighting him as a defender. But again, I fought him with Domino before, and I guess I didn't know why the shock triggered when fighting Domino, but now she does have a built-in 15% ability accuracy reduction. So whenever critical failure would normally trigger, if you have an ability that failed to trigger due to the critical failure, that's when she gets that shock debuff applied to her. So yeah, so just something that I learned there. So Guardian's an underrated defender, even though if you have like a non-Quake fighter, he's not that difficult to deal with. But you got so many people bringing Quake to war nowadays, sometimes they could trip him up. So speaking of which, now we have a Immortal Abomination. So we heal her up and we use a combat regeneration boost, because like I said, I don't want to flirt with being in assassin's range against an opponent in war, because you don't know what their mastery is going to be like. Especially if you're trying to Quake someone, if you're below 18% health, you might not get that dex, that Quake and that dex there every time. And with already being at 18% health, usually when they have assassins, that also means they have an increased attack rating. So not only will your quaking fail, but you will get hit harder than normal and you will die. So obviously I don't want to try to attack this guy because of him building up those poisons on me, because I'm not immune, and also him getting more poisons on himself to have a higher power rate. So that's the reason why there are limited options to this fight. So the opponent placed well in this path. It had a little bit of everything technically. You had a Darkhawk, who's a robot. Normally Medusa is the best counter for robots in general. You had Stealth Suit Spidey, who's the best counter in general for Spider-Verse champs is Venom. Then you had the Guardian, who he's a tech champ, so a lot of cosmic champs are good options against him there, or someone that's shock immune. And then you got this Immortal Abomination, who has few counters to successfully handle this without a lot of stress, such as Quake. Warlock, if he has willpower. In this case, he does have willpower, but could not afford to bring Warlock this war. Ghost can handle this fight, I believe. Hyperion, I believe, can handle this. Captain Marvel movie. The only thing about Captain Marvel movie is the protect is going to trigger with you hitting him so hard. So that will make it a little tricky there. But it's possible theoretically to handle him with anyone that's poison immune if you're great at intercepting to get rid of those poison buildup. But it's playing with fire. So, but that fight is over. So next here we have a Void. We're gonna use Claire. Now, earlier this season I used Claire on this fight and took a SB2 in the face after the fight was going perfectly well. So Claire can easily take this fight. Only thing I just have to manage is my combo meter in multiples of 10 to minimize the length of time that those debuffs are on me. And also try not to be too passive because of the crumbling armor, because that counts as a debuff and I'm likely gonna degenerate from that. So I start off great by getting hit there. But it actually worked out because I can time my 5-hit combo right before that debuff comes, so it ended up not being a bad thing. So we're gonna heal up. Well, I think, oh, never mind. We go ahead and change stances right there. All right, so we're gonna do a 5-hit combo, and this SB2 is going to get rid of that debuff. All right, so there's a little trick fighting against Void that I think I've shown in previous videos where when he throws that SP1, it has a little lag before he throws that second part of it, so you can use that part to dash in, so that way you can more comfortably punish his SP1 once it's done deploying. I mean, theoretically you can still punish it if you're far away. It just requires a little bit better timing to punish it. But with this method, it's more foolproof. Because obviously you don't want to get caught up where you're trying to avoid this SP1 when that debuff is getting ready to be applied to you, especially if your health is a critical factor, and not be able to get rid of that debuff. All right, so we do get a little intercept there. Want to get ourselves in a position to KO this guy. And we're doing a pretty good job managing those 10-hit combos. Like, I'm lining it up perfectly. And he's dead. All right. So next fight here, this is the next morning, of course. We have a Sasquatch. We're gonna use, I could theoretically I could use Torch here, but I just don't want to deal with his Wrath when he's unstoppable and stun immune. So we're gonna use Quake. As you can see, I haven't used Torch yet, but like I said, I had one particular fight I was gonna use him for. So like I said, I could have used him for this fight theoretically, and it would have, I would have been able to do it, but if you have a Quake, this should use her. She covers a lot of bandages. It allows you to be more flexible with the rest of your attack team. If you got some nodes that require more niche counters, and of course, there are some mini bosses that Quake can't handle just because of the node itself. But anyways, so here we're just doing our standard quaking, and of course, his second medium is that double-fisted, like, rise up from underneath, basically. Now, only thing you just got to be mindful of is when he goes into Wrath, of course, he'll have that red cloud around him, and you see it right there, so that way you know he's in Wrath, in case you're not looking up at his life meter. So you'll know if he's in Wrath if he got that little purple red cloud around him. So you just gotta realize he's stun immune during this phase. So whenever he would normally be stunned after a Quake cycle, he won't be. Or if he's being stunned and then Wrath just happens to pop up, then he will become unstunned. So you have to be ready to re-Quake. It's kind of similar to when Nick Fury goes from his first life until his second life. You have to make sure that you have that you're ready to re-Quake. So I think we're gonna be able to finish him off before he goes into Wrath again. All right, yep. But nope, yes, Wrath. Just got into Wrath one more time, but after this aftershock charge, he'll be dead. And there we go. All right, so next fight here, we got a theme. Now, in past wars, I usually have used Torch for things, but ever since I gotten so comfortable with using Claire, I got to the point where I'd rather fight with a class disadvantage than use Torch, even if I got him. Now, in hindsight, looking at how these fights ended up going, because theoretically that Dragon Man that fight you'll see shortly, I didn't really have to use Torch. I could have used Claire for that fight. She would have been just fine. And technically I could have used Quake for that fight. And in another war video, I'll explain exactly why, because you'll see that reasoning in action. So I'll save that commentary for that video. So in theory, I could have brought Falcon to go after the main boss, because it would have been an opportunity to fight a MODOK boss for the first time. But at the same time, my first priority was to make sure I can handle my own path, as well as the minis that I can feasibly handle with the team I got. But theoretically, I could have handled all the mini bosses with Quake and Claire. And as you saw, I was able to handle my whole path with Quake and Claire. Didn't really need Torch, even though I could have used him for the Guardian fight. Could have used him for the Darkhawk fight, because he's actually a pretty decent counter against both of those champs. And also theoretically, I could use him against Void, even though I would have to use pre-fight. So Claire was much safer there. So anyway, normal execution that we do against Thing. Just manage to rock stats with her bleeds, and then gradually gain power. Once I get to exactly 20 Mystic charges, I'll be exactly at 2 bars of power. Throw my SP2 to heal some of that chip damage back if I've taken any chip damage. And then change stances to the poison and incinerate phases, where I'm using polka dot power to gain power from that point moving forward, and being able to stun him and pretty much finish the fight by there. So it's pretty standard, easy, safe pattern to get into when you fight him on this node with her. Go ahead and time that SP2 and finish at exactly 15 hits, but unfortunately did not put him over a bar of power, so I have to hit into his block a little bit. As you can see, her buff immunity still applies to him. It's just that whenever she has the class disadvantage, it doesn't pop up every time. So that's the one time you can. So even though Thing is immune to nullify that buff immunity, he can still have that. So if he happens to become unblockable or unstoppable, if he has that buff immunity, it won't trigger. So something, in case you guys didn't know that. But you did see it there, where he was not able to trigger his unblockable when he had those 15 rock stats because of that buff immunity. So theoretically, you can fight a Thing boss with Claire as well when it comes to those stacking physical and energy resistance, because the buff immunity will apply every once in a while, but it won't be able to nullify the current buffs he has on him. So again, it can't be nullified. So last fight, kind of alluded to it. We're gonna be using torch here. We got the guidance applied so I can infinitely parry him. And since this is our first and only torch fight, we're gonna also apply the Nova Flame pre-fight, because I had no plans on using any of my champs with the Modok boss because they really wasn't the most compatible options. But again, we struggled against that boss, and I even threw my 3 champs against him, but I'm not going to show that footage because they weren't great matchups. So I did not contribute to defeating him in the one-shot efforts. So this will be the last recorded fight of the war. All right. So this is a pretty straightforward fight. We're going to purposely get hit into the block to build up more smolders. And with this SB1, it actually gives me a debuff that allows me to actually heal from with the willpower. So, but that's probably as easy as you're going to get there with a mini boss fight. But anyway, guys, we won this war. So we're 5-4 in the season with 3 more wars to go. As you can see there, we only had 3 deaths at that point, and we had a somewhat comfortable lead, but we did pull it off. But please comment below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And you have a great day.